A wolf cub is 6 weeks old, and she has been fed by hand for 11 days in a row. She knows this man's scent better than she knows her own reflection. She has slept against his ribs every night since she could walk. In the only language a 6-week-old wolf has for choosing anything, she has chosen him over every other warm body in the room, every other voice, every other hand. And when he leans down, inches from her face, and smiles at her, her mouth does not move. Most people assume this is simply a matter of time. Give it a few more weeks, they think. A few more months of warmth and proximity, and she will learn what a dog seems to know by instinct, that a certain shape of the mouth means something good is happening. It will not happen. Not in 6 weeks. Not in 6 years. Not across a lifetime spent entirely in human hands, fed by hand, sheltered indoors, loved more consistently than most dogs ever are. Because what looks like a missing skill is not missing at all. It is a locked door. And the lock was installed tens of thousands of years before this particular cub was ever born. To understand the lock, you first have to understand what's on the other side of it. Somewhere between 15 and 40,000 years ago, the exact window is still argued over fiercely by people who have spent entire careers staring at fossilized jawbones. A population of wolves began drifting toward human fires. Not tamed, not trained, drawn, the way certain doors are drawn open by pressure differences they can't perceive. What followed was not domestication in the way people usually picture it. A campaign, a project, a plan. It was closer to a filter. The wolves least afraid of people got fed. The ones that got fed stayed close. The ones that stayed close bred with each other generation after generation, until an animal walked out the other side of that filter that no longer resembled its ancestors in one very specific, very strange way. It had learned how to talk to a different species using its face. In 2019, a team of researchers led by Julianne Kaminsky at the University of Portsmouth dissected the heads of dogs and wolves, layer by layer, looking for the muscle responsible for one particular movement. The inner eyebrow raise that makes a dog's eyes look suddenly larger, rounder, more pleading. The expression people call, without irony, puppy dog eyes. What they found was almost uncomfortable in its precision. Dogs had a small, defined muscle running to the inner corner of the eyebrow. Every dog breed studied had it, clean and consistent, as if installed by design. Wolves did not. In wolf after wolf, the same muscle showed up as a scattering of disorganized fibers, the genetic equivalent of a sentence with most of its words missing. The implication landed harder than the anatomy itself. In roughly 33,000 years, evolution had built dogs a piece of face whose only apparent purpose was to be looked at by us. Not to hunt with, not to fight with, to be read by a species that wasn't even theirs. A muscle that exists to make another animal love you back. For a few years, that story held. Then it cracked. In 2024, a separate team examined the same muscle in coyotes, wild, undomesticated, never bred by human hands, and found it sitting there fully formed, present and well-developed, in an animal humans had never selected, never fed by hand, never invited near a fire, which meant the original story might be backwards. Perhaps dogs didn't gain this expressive muscle through domestication at all. Perhaps wolves were the ones who lost it, dropped it somewhere along their own evolutionary path for reasons that have nothing to do with us. Scientists still debate which version is true. But notice what doesn't change in either version. Wolves end up on the silent side of the gap. Whether the muscle was given to dogs or taken from wolves, the result sitting in front of you, inches from your face, is the same animal, engineered or left behind. Take your pick. That simply does not have the hardware to perform what you're hoping to see. You can love a closed door for years. It still won't open on its own. But here is where the story stops being about muscles and starts being about stakes. Inside a wolf pack, the face is not decoration. It is law. A wolf that bares its teeth incorrectly, too long, too directly at the wrong member of the hierarchy is not making a social mistake the way a person fumbles a handshake. It is risking a fight that can end in blood, in exile, in death. Every wolf in that pack has spent its entire life learning to read microsignals on the faces around it with the seriousness of someone reading a loaded weapon. because that is, in effect, exactly what they are reading. There is, in fact, an expression in wolves that looks almost exactly like a smile. Ethologists call it the submissive grin, lips pulled back, teeth showing, body lowered. Cubs use it on adults. Subordinates use it on the dominant animals around them. It was first documented in detail by the researcher Michael Fox in 1969, and it has been observed not only between wolves, but occasionally directed at the humans who raise them. It looks, to an untrained eye, like joy. It is not joy. It is surrender. A facial confession that says, as plainly as a body can say anything, I am not a threat to you. Please do not hurt me. The same expression survives in domestic dogs, inherited almost unchanged. The so-called submissive grin that dog owners often mistake for happiness, or worse, for guilt. Researchers studying it today are explicit on this point. It is appeasement, not contentment. A dog baring its teeth with lowered head and squinted eyes is not celebrating. It is negotiating for safety, which means the expression humans have spent thousands of years interpreting as warmth may have started its life, in every species that has it, as fear wearing a different face. If the face is law inside the pack, then a wolf has almost no incentive to extend that law to a stranger species standing outside it. Even one that feeds it, shelters it, sleeps beside it. You are not a rival for rank. You are not a member of the hierarchy whose favor must be secured through performance. To a wolf raised by humans, you may be trusted, even loved, in whatever form wolf love takes. But you're not legible. There is no ancestral protocol for negotiating status with you, because for the overwhelming majority of the species' evolutionary history, you did not exist as a category worth negotiating with. A dog, by contrast, has spent 30,000 years being bred specifically to make you legible to it, and itself legible to you. Every generation that performed friendliness more convincingly survived, ate better, reproduced more successfully. Dogs were not just selected for tameness. They were selected slowly and invisibly for the ability to be read. The wolf was never enrolled in that program. In 2015, a research team at Asabi University in Japan ran an experiment that quietly reframed how people understood the human-dog bond. They brought dogs and their owners together for 30 minutes of contact and conversation and measure a hormone, oxytocin, in both species before and after. Owners and dogs that held longer mutual eye contact showed a synchronized rise in oxytocin. The dog's gaze appeared to trigger a chemical response in the human. The human's response appeared to trigger a further rise in the dog. A loop, feeding itself, growing stronger the longer the two animals looked into each other's eyes. Then they ran the same experiment with hand-raised wolves and the people who had cared for them since birth. Nothing happened. The loop did not appear. The wolves, the researchers noted, rarely held a human's gaze at all. The finding wasn't simple, and it hasn't gone unchallenged. Later attempts to replicate the exact effect produced mixed results, and researchers continue to argue over how much of it is hormonal, how much is behavioral, how much is something harder to name. But the central asymmetry has held up across the debate. Whatever is happening between a dog's eyes and a human's brain, it is not happening in the same way between a wolf's eyes and yours. Even when the wolf has never known another life. Even when it was bottle-fed in the same kitchen as a litter of puppies down the road. Something in the loop simply isn't wired to close. Which brings the story to the place it was always quietly heading. It's tempting to hear all of this and conclude that the wolf is simply less capable. An animal stuck several evolutionary steps behind its domesticated cousin, missing a feature dogs were lucky enough to acquire. But that reading misses something larger and considerably less comfortable. The dog's face did not evolve to express what the dog feels. It evolved to produce what humans want to see. The eyebrow raise that melts a stranger's heart in a shelter is not a window into canine emotion. It is a lever shaped over millennia by which dogs got fed and which did not, that happens to look to us like a longing. The grin that owners read as a smile began its existence, in wolves and dogs alike, as a confession of fear. Even the human smile, the supposed universal signature of joy, traces a lineage backward through primate behavior researchers to something called a fear grin, a non-threatening signal flashed by a subordinate animal at a dominant one, tens of millions of years before anyone called it happiness. If that lineage is right, then the species in this story that has done the least performing may not be the dog. It may be the one standing in the snow, watching you from a distance, giving you nothing. A wolf's face has not been edited for your comfort. It was never put through the filter that exchanged honesty for legibility. The filter every domesticated species, in some form, has passed through, including, in quieter and more deniable ways, our own. We perform warmth at strangers we don't trust. We arrange our faces into shapes proven to win cooperation, the way a dog arranges its eyebrows into a shape proven to win dinner. The wolf never learned that trade. Not because it failed to, because nothing in its history ever asked it to. So when you stand in front of one, fed by your hand, sheltered by your roof, closer to you than almost any other wild animal will ever come, and it looks back at you with a face that gives away nothing, you are not looking at indifference. You are looking at the last unedited expression most people will ever see in their lives. It has not refused to love you. It has simply never agreed to perform it.